Rafael Nadal dropped a bombshell that nobody saw coming. Alex Eala just made history at Indian Wells, and the legend himself couldn't stay silent. What did the 22-time Grand Slam champion reveal about his former academy student that sent shockwaves through tennis? This wasn't just another congratulatory message. This was Rafa pulling back the curtain on something the world needed to witness. When a legend speaks, champions listen. But when Nadal speaks about Eala, the entire sport stands frozen. Indian Wells 2026 wasn't supposed to unfold this way. 20-year-old Alexandra Eala arrived in California's tennis paradise, carrying momentum, ambition, and the weight of an entire nation's dreams on her shoulders. The fifth Grand Slam had never witnessed a Filipina penetrate this deep into its draw, had never felt the seismic energy of thousands of Filipino fans transforming quiet desert nights into roaring celebrations that echoed across continents. March began ordinarily enough. Eala secured a first-round bye, seated comfortably within the tournament's elite bracket, her first time entering a WTA 1000 event with such prestige. Tournament organizers noticed something peculiar during practice sessions. Crowds gathered, not for established champions, but for this lefty from Manila, whose Instagram following approached 1 million, whose every stroke generated electricity, whose presence alone sold out venues from Dubai to Melbourne. Then came Dayana Yastremska in round 2. What followed defied expectations. Nearly 3 hours of brutal, unrelenting tennis stretched past midnight. Temperatures plummeted, sensible fans departed. Filipino supporters remained, bundled against the cold, voices hoarse but unyielding. Down 4-5 in the decisive third set, match point looming like an executioner's blade, Eala refused submission. Yastremska double-faulted, once, twice, crumbling under pressure that Eala manufactured through sheer willpower. The comeback materialized. 7-5, 4-6, 7-5. Victory snatched from the jaws of elimination. But nobody anticipated what transpired next. Coco Gauff, world number 4, American tennis royalty. The opponent waiting in round 3 carried credentials that intimidated seasoned professionals. Just 14 days earlier in Dubai, Gauff had dismantled Eala 6-0, 6-2, a performance so dominant it suggested hierarchy, that Eala belongs somewhere below the sport's upper echelon. March 8th rewrote that narrative permanently. From the opening rally, Eala seized control with ferocity that stunned courtside observers. She broke Gauff 3 consecutive times, establishing a 5-2 stranglehold through precision serving, 96% first serve accuracy, and baseline discipline that forced the American into defensive scrambles. Gauff committed 7 double faults. Her left arm betrayed her, requiring medical intervention mid-set. When she retired at 6-2, 2-0, the scoreline barely captured Eala's dominance. Standing ovation, Filipino flags waving beneath stadium lights, Eala advancing to the round of 16 at Indian Wells for the first time in her career, simultaneously cracking the WTA top 30 at number 29, the highest ranking any Filipina had ever achieved in professional tennis history. Tournament director Philippe Doré admitted afterwards what everyone witnessed. We benefit from it. We promote it. Indian Wells posted Eala's content across platforms. A day in the life video garnered 94,000 views, dwarfing every other upload that season. She appeared in Instagram's Class of 2026 alongside 7 top 10 players, the only non-elite included, recognized not for seeding, but for cultural impact. Thousands of miles away, in Spain, someone watched intently. Someone who understood breakthrough moments, who recognized when potential crystallized into undeniable reality. Rafael Nadal had witnessed Eala's entire journey, from 13-year-old Academy newcomer to WTA phenom, but Indian Wells represented something transcendent. This wasn't incremental progress. This was announcement. This was arrival. And Rafa needed the world to know what he'd always suspected. Alex Eala wasn't just making history, she was rewriting what history believed possible. Controversy erupted not from defeat, but from silence, initially mistaken for absence. During Eala's blistering Indian Wells campaign, her phone exploded with notifications. Thousands of messages, congratulations flooding in from every corner of the tennis universe. Overwhelmed by the avalanche, Eala made a calculated decision. Distance herself from digital chaos, maintain focus on competition, preserve mental energy for battles ahead. She barely glanced at her device. Smart strategy. Necessary discipline. Except one message slipped through unnoticed, buried beneath the deluge. Rafa had reached out personally, not publicly on Twitter where millions would witness, privately, directly, the first time he'd ever messaged her that way. 4 days passed before Eala discovered it. "My phone was blowing up," she admitted during a Tennis Channel interview, voice tinged with disbelief. "Rafa sent me a message, but I saw it like 4 days afterwards. I apologized for getting back to him so late." That delayed response sparked immediate intrigue. What had Rafa written that warranted personal, private contact? Why break years of professional distance to send direct encouragement during Indian Wells specifically? Tennis insiders recognized the significance immediately. Rafa doesn't message casually. When the Mallorcan legend initiates private communication, intention exists beneath every word. The public witnessed only fragments. On social media, Nadal posted, "We are extremely proud of you, Alex. What an incredible tournament. Let's keep dreaming." Surface-level congratulations. Generic praise. Except those familiar with Nadal's communication patterns detected layers beneath. The phrase, "let's keep dreaming," carried weight. Not "keep winning" or "continue succeeding." Keep dreaming, as though Eala's achievements validated visions others deemed impossible, as though Eala's Indian Wells breakthrough represented vindication for something larger than tennis results. But private correspondence remained private. Neither Eala nor Nadal disclosed specifics beyond confirming the exchange occurred. Speculation ignited across tennis media. Had Rafa offered tactical advice, strategic guidance for navigating newfound fame? Perhaps something more profound, acknowledgement that Eala embodied principles he'd championed throughout his academy's existence. What emerged through subsequent interviews painted a fascinating portrait. Eala revealed that despite training at the Rafa Nadal Academy for 6 years, graduating in 2023, direct interaction with the legend himself remained sporadic. "He's just Rafa, so you're always going to be scared," she confessed on the Served podcast. "I don't know what to say. I always get very tongue-tied. It doesn't get easier."
Rafael Nadal's bombshell about Alex Eala wasn't just acknowledgement of past achievements. It was prophecy about tennis's future and warning about obstacles ahead. Indian Wells 2026 ended for Eala in the round of 16. Czech standout Linda Neskova demolished her 6-2, 6-0, a scoreline so lopsided it suggested Eala didn't belong on the same court. The Filipino faithful watched their champion dismantled in 54 minutes. No heroic comeback materialized, no midnight miracle occurred, just brutal, efficient defeat that exposed gaps between potential and actualization. Greg Rusetsky, analyzing the match for broadcast, delivered harsh assessment. Eala needs dramatic improvement in certain areas if she wants to avoid heavy defeats like this consistently. The physical conditioning, the strategic diversity, these aren't optional at this level. Yet, Eala extracted wisdom from humiliation. "I know that I belong here," she insisted during post-match interviews. "The initial feelings after the match are a tough pill to swallow, but I'm in the 4th round of Indian Wells, and I'm really happy about that."
Her $105,720 prize money exceeded 6 million Philippine pesos. Rankings points elevated her to career high number 29. She defeated a top 5 opponent, survived a 3-hour epic, and announced Filipino tennis exists as legitimate force on the WTA Tour. Nadal understood something crucial that critics overlooked. Indian Wells wasn't Eala's destination, it was foundation. Every champion he'd mentored at his academy faced identical crucibles. Carlos Alcaraz lost badly before conquering Grand Slams. Casper Ruud endured beatings before reaching major finals. Breakthrough arrives unevenly. Progress measured across seasons rather than single tournaments. What Nadal recognized in Eala transcended Indian Wells' results. He saw work ethic that rivals professionals twice her age. Academy staff reported she trained with obsessive consistency. First on court, last to leave, relentless in gym sessions, meticulous about recovery protocols. Tony Nadal, Rafa's uncle and longtime coach, observed Eala frequently and commented to staff about her mental resilience during practice adversity. The Filipino phenomenon brought intangible value Nadal prioritized above rankings. She proved tennis could captivate nations previously indifferent to the sport. Filipino demographics represented untapped markets, passionate, loyal, willing to invest emotionally and financially in homegrown champions. Sponsorship executives noticed, tournament directors noticed, television networks noticed. Eala's Instagram followers approached 1 million. For comparison, top 20 players with superior results generated less social engagement. Her practice sessions attracted crowds that rivaled main stage matches. The day in the life video at Indian Wells outperformed content featuring established stars. This wasn't manufactured hype. This was organic cultural movement. Nadal's academy had cultivated technical excellence in dozens of players. But Eala possessed something rarer. She made tennis matter to people who'd never cared before. Filipino families who'd never watched tennis suddenly scheduled lives around her matches. Expatriate communities gathered in California, Texas, New York to support her live. Children in Manila mimicked her lefty serve, dreaming they too could reach Indian Wells. That's the bombshell Nadal dropped through his actions, his private message, his practice session choice. Alex Eala isn't just another talented player. She's catalyst for transformation. She represents what happens when tennis expands beyond traditional power bases, when new nations produce champions, when the sport evolves into a truly global enterprise rather than European, American, Australian monopoly. Her clay struggles? Correctable with training. Her loss to Noskova? Learning opportunity disguised as defeat. The pressure from Filipino expectations? Manageable with proper support structures. What matters, what Nadal recognized immediately, is that Eala possesses unshakable foundation: fight, humility, hunger, and cultural impact no opponent can neutralize through superior forehands. Manny Pacquiao, the Philippines boxing legend, sent public messages supporting Eala. Government officials celebrated her achievements. Nike invested millions in Filipino-themed merchandise. The revolution had begun, and Nadal ensured tennis understood: ignore Alex Eala at your peril, because what she's building will reshape this sport, whether traditionalists approve or not. The question isn't whether she'll become number one. The question is how many Filipino champions will follow the path she's clearing. But here's what nobody's talking about. What happens when the weight becomes too much, when an entire nation's dreams rest on your racket, and every loss feels like betraying millions? Can anyone sustain that pressure without cracking? Or is Eala about to show us something nobody's seen before? November 19th, 2025, meant something beyond symbolic practice sessions. That date marked exactly 12 months since Nadal's retirement, but it represented something deeper: confirmation that his vision for tennis's future manifested exactly as predicted. When Nadal built his academy in Mallorca, skeptics questioned the model. Why invest millions in facilities aimed at developing players who might never reach elite status? Why dedicate resources to international talent rather than focusing exclusively on Spanish prospects? Why emphasize mental fortitude and work ethic over pure technical brilliance? Alex Eala answered every question. She arrived at the academy at 13, undersized, unpolished, possessing lefty ground strokes and determination, but little else. Spanish academies had rejected her, European programs deemed her insufficient, yet something in Eala's application caught Nadal's attention. Perhaps the hunger in her personal statement, perhaps recognition that Filipino tennis existed as a blank canvas waiting to be properly cultivated, perhaps intuition that this particular 13-year-old possessed intangibles that mattered more than junior rankings. 6 years later, Eala graduated having absorbed everything the academy offered. She left not as Nadal clone, but as her own distinct force, aggressive lefty willing to trade power for precision, fighter capable of 3-hour battles, champion comfortable under suffocating pressure. Exactly what Nadal's academy aimed to produce, players who honored their individuality while embodying universal champion principles. Her 2025 breakthrough validated that development model spectacularly. The Miami Open semifinal run, defeating Ostapenko, Keys, and Swiatek consecutively, announced Eala belonged among tennis royalty. Her Eastbourne final appearance demonstrated consistency beyond single tournament flukes. The U.S. Open victory over Clara Towson made her the first Filipino to win a Grand Slam main draw match in the Open era. History materialized because preparation met opportunity. Nadal watched each milestone, texting congratulations privately when moments merited personal touch. But Indian Wells 2026 represented culmination, when Eala battled past midnight against Yastremska, when she dominated Gauff despite recent lopsided loss, when Filipino fans transformed the tournament into a cultural celebration, Nadal recognized prophecy fulfilled. That's why he returned to court with Eala specifically, not charity, not nostalgia, confirmation. He needed to test whether she'd absorbed lessons, whether Indian Wells' success emerged from momentary inspiration or sustainable excellence. They rallied for 90 minutes. Nadal evaluated movement patterns, shot selection under pressure, mental composure when rallies extended. He left convinced Eala possessed everything required for top 10 tennis, provided she maintained development trajectory. "Next time, I will be stronger," he'd written with that winking emoji. Translation, "I'm coming back to push you harder because I believe you can handle it." Champions don't coddle, they challenge. The tennis world absorbed implications. When Nadal selects someone for investment, time, energy, personal attention, smart people pay attention. His endorsement carries more weight than rankings, more credibility than prize money. If Rafa believes in you, betting against you becomes an expensive mistake. Eala's journey from rejected academy applicant to top 30 WTA player validated Nadal's entire post-playing philosophy. He didn't need to compete anymore. His legacy extended beyond Grand Slam titles. Through his academy, through careful cultivation of players like Eala, through demonstrating that champions emerge from anywhere when properly developed, Nadal continued shaping tennis long after retirement. The bombshell wasn't what he said publicly. The bombshell was what his actions revealed. Rafael Nadal had been planning this all along. He'd built infrastructure, established protocols, created systems designed to identify and develop the next generation. Alex Eala proved those systems work. Now, dozens of young players worldwide recognize new truth. You don't need a European birthplace or wealthy family to reach tennis's summit. You just need to be willing to work like Rafa and fight like Alex Eala. So here's the question that will define the next decade of tennis. Will Alex Eala become the champion Nadal always believed she could be? Or will the pressure, the expectations, the weight of an entire nation's dreams prove too heavy for shoulders trained at the Rafa Nadal Academy? One thing's certain, the tennis world better be ready, because Filipino flags aren't disappearing from stadiums, and neither is Alex Eala. Rafael Nadal's bombshell about Alex Eala after Indian Wells wasn't just praise, it was Yet Nadal observed constantly. Joan Bosch, Eala's coach, recounted a transformative moment at the academy when Nadal witnessed Eala struggling with serve botanics. Rather than maintain distance, Rafa descended from his observation post spontaneously. He wanted to come down because he felt identified with the situation, Bosch explained. He told Alex, "This used to happen to me too. Try this other thing." Then he picked up a racket and started demonstrating serves to teach her exactly what he meant. Alex looked at me afterwards like she couldn't believe it. That's Nadal's pattern. Silent observation followed by decisive intervention when moments demand. Indian Wells 2026 represented such a moment. When Eala dismantled Yastremska past midnight, when she dominated Gauff on tennis's grandest stages, when Filipino fans transformed the tournament into something resembling Manny Pacquiao's boxing peak, Nadal recognized a paradigm shift unfolding. He messaged not because protocol required it. He messaged because what Eala achieved transcended individual accomplishment. She validated his academy's philosophy, proved that champions emerge from anywhere when provided proper cultivation. She demonstrated that work ethic matters more than birthplace, that lefties from Manila can terrorize top 5 opponents just as effectively as lefties from Majorca once did. The message remained private, but its existence spoke volumes. Rafael Nadal had witnessed something at Indian Wells that demanded acknowledgement beyond public tweets. Something worthy of breaking years of professional distance, something that confirmed what he'd always believed. Alex Eala had arrived, and Rafa wanted her to know he'd been watching all along. Then came the moment that stopped tennis cold, November 19th, 2025, exactly 1 year after Nadal's retirement from professional tennis. The legend returned to court. Not for exhibition, not for ceremony, for practice, with Alexandra Eala. The Rafa Nadal Academy's Instagram post detonated across social media. Footage of Nadal and Eala rallying, laughing, working through drills together. Nadal's caption carried weight that transcended casual reunion. 1 year later, it felt great to be back on a tennis court. It was great to practice with you, Alex Eala. Next time, I will be stronger. Winking emoji. That winking emoji became gasoline on fire. Next time I will be stronger suggested competition, friendly rivalry, mutual respect between equals rather than mentor condescending to student. Eala responded publicly, "Back like you never left." But the bombshell arrived weeks later when journalists pressed both parties for context. What emerged shattered assumptions about their relationship, about Nadal's post-retirement intentions, about why he chose Eala specifically for his first session in 12 months. During Indian Wells' media availability, Eala finally disclosed the complete picture. "Rafa told me something during practice that I'll never forget," she revealed, choosing words carefully. He said, "Watching my Indian Wells run reminded him why he built the academy, not to create players who copy his game, but to develop fighters who refuse to quit when everyone expects them to lose." That statement reverberated. Nadal, the greatest clay court warrior in tennis history, the man who turned never-surrender mentality into championship currency, saw his own essence reflected in Eala's 3-hour midnight battle against Yastremska. When she clawed back from 4-5 in the third set, when she converted match point after her opponent's double fault, Nadal recognized the DNA he'd spent decades cultivating in others. Tournament commentator Jim Courier captured the magnitude during live broadcast. "When Nadal speaks about another player this way, you listen. He doesn't offer praise lately. If Rafa sees fight in you, it means you've passed the only test that matters to him. You've proven you'll bleed before you break." The practice session itself carried symbolic weight. Nadal hadn't held a racket competitively since Spain's Davis Cup elimination. Retirement finalized, legacy cemented, body finally granted rest after decades of punishing training regimens and injury rehabilitation. Yet, he chose Eala for his return to court. Not fellow ATP legends, not academy prodigies carrying more impressive junior resumes, not Spanish compatriots who'd grown up idolizing him. Alex Eala, the Filipino lefty who'd spent her teenage years at his academy, but whom he'd rarely coached directly. The player he'd watched from distance, observing work ethic, studying mental fortitude, evaluating whether she possessed qualities that transcended technical proficiency. Indian Wells 2026 answered every question. Bosch provided additional context that illuminated Nadal's decision-making. When Rafa commits time, it means investment, not just in your tennis, but in what you represent. Alex represents everything the Academy stands for: humility, hunger, refusal to accept limits others try to impose. The tennis world absorbed implications. Nadal selecting Eala signaled endorsement beyond congratulatory tweets. It announced to every player, coach, and federation, this young woman embodies the future. Watch her. Learn from her. Because what she's building, the Filipino fan movement, the cultural crossover appeal, the ability to sell out tournaments while ranked outside the top 20, represents tennis's next evolution. Coco Gauff understood immediately. After losing to Eala at Indian Wells, she told reporters, "Alex is bringing a new demographic to the sport. I really appreciate it. I think it's great." Even in defeat, Gauff recognized Eala's impact transcended their head-to-head record. This was bigger than rankings, bigger than prize money. This was Rafael Nadal passing the torch to someone who'd carry it differently, but with equal intensity. And the sport would never be the same. With Nadal's endorsement came suffocating pressure that would destroy lesser competitors. The Philippines, a nation starved for international athletic success since Manny Pacquiao's peak, transferred every expectation onto Eala's 20-year-old shoulders. Over 10 million Filipinos reside overseas, approximately 1.7 million in California alone. They descended on Indian Wells like pilgrims seeking validation that their people belong among tennis royalty. Journalist TJ Monotok articulated the cultural weight. The country has been hungry for the next Manny Pacquiao. When he was at his peak, life stopped. When there's a fight, nothing's on the road. Everyone's watching. That same intensity now followed Eala. Cameras tracking her movements, social media dissecting every forehand, millions watching in time zones halfway across the planet. Her Australian Open debut in January 2026 foreshadowed what awaited. Tournament organizers assigned her first-round match to a smaller court, anticipating modest attendance. Filipino fans packed it beyond capacity. Spectators stood throughout, unable to secure seating. Officials scrambled to accommodate demand they'd catastrophically underestimated. Dubai amplified the phenomenon. Eala's quarterfinal run sold out every match. Stadiums that rarely reached capacity transformed into Filipino festivals. Flags waving, cheers echoing in Tagalog, entire sections coordinating chants. Gauff acknowledged the atmosphere after defeating Eala. "I've played this tournament for many years, and to see the stadium full, it means a lot." Indian Wells represented the crescendo. Eala's second-round match against Yastremska started late night. Reasonable fans departed as midnight approached and temperatures dropped. Filipinos remained, refusing to abandon their champion, despite cold, despite exhaustion, despite the match stretching towards 3 hours. When Eala completed her comeback, the roar carried across the desert. BNP Paribas Open executive Philippe Duray admitted the economic reality. "We love every minute of it. We benefit from it. We promote it." Tournament organizers recognize that Eala generated revenue streams previously untapped: merchandise sales, ticket purchases from demographics that typically ignored tennis, global viewership from Southeast Asia. Her presence alone justified expanded marketing budgets. But pressure manifests in dangerous ways. Eala's clay court struggles exemplified the cost of elevated expectations. Throughout 2025, she won merely 3 WTA main draw matches on clay, abysmal performance for someone entering top 30 territory. Critics questioned whether her success existed only on hard courts, whether she possessed the versatility required for sustained elite competition. Nadal observed these struggles with concern. Clay represented his domain, the surface where he'd captured 14 French Open titles. Watching Eala flounder on terre battue troubled him, not because results disappointed, but because he recognized technical deficiencies others missed. Her footwork on clay betrayed hard court habits, her shot selection suggested insufficient adaptation to slower conditions. Most critically, her mental approach lacked the patience clay demands. That's why their November practice session focused heavily on clay-specific adjustments. Nadal demonstrated footwork patterns, emphasized weight transfer mechanics, explained how rally construction differs fundamentally from surfaces. He told Eala, "This used to happen to me too," she recalled. Coming from him, those words meant everything. Yet pressure extends beyond technical corrections. Ayala must navigate fame without precedent for Filipino tennis players. She requires security details at tournaments. Her practice sessions attract hundreds of spectators. Sponsorship offers flood in, each demanding time and attention. Nike designed custom gear featuring the sampaguita, the Philippines' national flower, for her Wimbledon debut. Shirts sold out instantly across Manila. I think time management for me is super key, Ayala admitted during Miami Open interviews. At the end of the day, I need to have fun on tour. I feel like I'm 20. I need to live my life, not my whole